Before you guys ask questions, I just wanted to quickly thank our coaches and players, support staff. 6 and 10 is not what I want, the Bagulas want, Sean wants, anybody in this community. I can promise you that. But this has been a calculated plan from when I interviewed here to how I saw this and how Sean saw it in the Bagulas. We were all on the same page of building this thing. And we knew the salary cap needed to be fixed going forward. And, you know, it's not ideal to hand a set of coaches and players $50+ million of dead money. And you can whine about it, or you can go do something about it. And I'm really proud of the games that we won. And there was some winning moments in games we lost. Unfortunately, those don't get focused on when you lose. That's part of the deal. But there's a lot to build on off the record. It was a great way to finish yesterday, especially with some of the young players making the plays and impacting the game the way they did. We're very aware of some of the areas, you know, and that's what this week's going to be about, of not only looking at this last game, but the various phases, offense, defense, special teams, of what went well and what we need to fix going forward. So with no further ado, I'll open up to questions.
You mentioned the salary cap right off the bat here. How aggressive are you guys going to be, knowing that you've got all that money? Bills fans are going to see some guys land here. How aggressive is the attack?
Judicious is probably the word I would use instead of aggressive. You know, if you're not wise with it, you can be back to where it was when I walked in the door here. So we definitely want to fill holes in free agency. I think I've said it before. You use free agency to help you, so you're not going to draft, you know, in April with all these holes, and now you're drafting for need. I promise you, drafting for need is a mistake that can set franchises back, and I'm not going to do that as long as I'm in charge here.
Brandon, you said during midway through the year that you knew you needed to get Josh some more weapons. Now, you know, I think the development of Zay Jones and Robert Foster maybe factors into that. Maybe, you know, you had them right, under your nose, but do you still feel that way? Do you need to do more to support Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to do, you know, a solid job this offseason to improve our offense. You know, when Josh came back, it started with Matt's game at the Jets, and then Josh was able to play Jacksonville and beyond. Our offense definitely had improved from prior to Josh's injury. And so that's what you like, but it doesn't mean that, oh, we've got it all fixed. We know where we need to get stronger. There's a lot of areas that we do need to get stronger, and we'll look to address all of those, whether it's bringing certain players back, whether it's paying attention to guys that get cut for salary cap reasons prior to free agency, obviously free agency, and then hopefully fill some holes in the draft.
Hey, Brandon, in hindsight, I know it may not have been the plan at the start of the year, but are you glad that Josh got in as quickly as he did? Because now he's got 12 games under his belt. I mean, again, it may not have been the plan, but are you, in hindsight, are you glad it happened this way? Yeah,
I am. I'm glad that he got to play. You know, you never know. You don't want to force somebody out there, but there's no replication for playing live bullets. You know, we saw the difference in evaluating preseason play versus evaluating live bullets, where guys are blitzing and disguising and all those things. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, you even saw the difference in a lot of how the thing slowed down from Josh's first stint prior to the injury to when he came back. And he was definitely more comfortable for the most part. He's still got a ways to go. He's a rookie, and he's not arrived by any means. There's going to be things when he steps out next year that somebody else is going to get him on. But I know who he is, and he is not complacent or anything like that. This guy's competitive, and he wants to get better. He wants to be the best at his craft, and I know he's got a really good plan. We just talked to a lot of the young guys before I came in here, and Josh has a really good plan for the offseason to come back here bigger, stronger, faster, and mentally even stronger.
How important is consistency to Josh's success, continued development from the coaching
Yeah, Derek was invaluable to what he brought. Another set of eyes and ears that's lived that position. Coaches, there's many coaches in this league that never played at this level in between the white lines, and there's no replacement for a guy who has done it, seen it, and not only has Derek been great for Josh, and for Matt, but he's also been great for Brian and Dayball in some of the things. Sometimes, you know what, that sounds great, that's drawn up well, but the problem is when you do this. Or, in Carolina, we were able to use this play with Cam, and it really, it was effective because of X. Derek's, not only helped Josh, but he's helped our coaches in the game planning as well.
The prevailing theme or concern for much of the season has been your running game. I mean, Josh kind of covered it up with some of his runs, but what are your concerns about LaShawn McCoy and the overall, and do you want Josh Allen running as much as he did? And how much do you need the running game, the traditional running game, to get going, and how do you get around to doing that next year?
I mean, ideally, you'd love to have both elements. You want Josh to have the threat to run. Now, I think that's one of the areas he improved. He was taking way too many hits early on, and I thought he did a better job down the stretch of avoiding them for the most part. There may have been one or two yesterday, but you don't want to rely on your quarterback running. That can be problematic from an injury standpoint. We want to be able to run the ball. Good teams can run the ball when the defense and everybody in the building knows you got to run it in your 4-minute offense to close out games, close out halves. So we definitely understand the importance of that. We're not happy with it. It's a lot of areas from sometimes our O-line I felt was out of sync for various reasons. It wasn't always like one guy or one side of the ball. I just never felt our run game, for the most part, got into a consistent groove, and that's something that we have to be honest about as we make changes going forward this offseason.
Brandon, as a follow-up to that, LaShawn McCoy obviously didn't have the season that we're used to seeing from him and putting up the numbers that we're used to seeing from him. How does he fit into your plans for 2019, and is he part of your plans for 2019?
He is part of our plan. Again, as I said earlier, our offense, we're not happy with a lot of things that happened, and we improved in some areas. That's one that we did not improve. But I think it was our entire running game. I don't think it was just one person, to single out LaShawn. So, you saw some plays he still made yesterday. I think if we can improve in other areas, that will help LaShawn. Early in the year, our pass game was not very good. You could see it. Teams were focused on, all right, if we stop 25, this team's not going to go far. And, while we did improve our pass game, our run game stayed stagnant for a lot of the year. So, again, LaShawn will come back in 2019, and we'll go from there.
Brandon, with that in mind, do you feel like the run game would struggle to develop an identity under Dable this year? Do you feel like you guys on the personnel side have a firm grasp of maybe the kind of upgrades you might need in the form of a player or two up front? I guess what I'm getting at is the kind of offensive lineman you might need to make this run game work.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of things. O-line, having a good O-line is sometimes more than, it's the sum of the parts. You can have, 3 or 4 really good ones, but if they're not gelled, it doesn't matter who you got. Our line individually, there's some guys that have played a lot of snaps and been on some good O-lines that have, even here, that have rushed for a lot of yardage. But this year we just weren't able to gel, and we recognize that, and we'll continue to work on improving that. We're going to try and bring in competition like we're going to do, across the board, and we'll try and improve that. We'll look at, we have to be honest, we'll look at the things that we did well schematically, and I know Brian and his staff and Sean will look at that, as will we, and we'll continue to try to find good football players.
Brandon, given the lack of production from LaShawn and Clay, they represent about 11 million, 10 million in salary cap savings that you moved on. Isn't it kind of tempting to move on from 2 players who represent that much money, and also the production isn't declining the way it was?
Well, if we were up against the cap, I'd say maybe you're more considering that. But you know, I'm not a believer that LaShawn is done. And I know you're talking about his numbers around 6 million. If he gets back to the form and we get our offense going, I think he can still be a weapon.
Brandon, it seems like the case, but is the elbow injury that Josh suffered completely behind him, not any sort of worry for you guys moving forward, nothing that needs to be done this offseason with that?
Yeah, he'll just continue to strengthen it and do things. We just met with our sports performance guys and laid out his plan and what's expected, as with a lot of guys. So no worries there. He'll just continue to try and get stronger.
What's your level of optimism that you can get a deal done with Lorenzo Alexander?
You know, I don't like to discuss deals, but, you know, at the end of the day, we like Lorenzo and, you know, appreciate all he's done for this organization. And, you know, I'm about keeping, you know, those types of guys around. And, you know, Lorenzo, I think we all in here can agree, can still play. You know, we'll get with his representatives, and it's all about coming up with a deal that, similar to Kyle a year ago, you know, that is fair for him and is fair for us. And sometimes that takes time, but we'll work on that with his representatives, and I'd love nothing more than to have him come back for 2019.
Leon Dawkins definitely your left tackle next season, or can you see him moving to right tackle?
Yeah, I'm not going to slot anybody in. You know, that's Sean and Brian would do that. We're going to put guys in the best spot to succeed. So, you know, we'll bring in competition from free agency draft at a lot of spots, including O-line. And if we feel Deion's our best left tackle, that's where he'll play.
Brandon, you talked about taking a calculated approach through this whole thing over the 2-year process. I don't know if it was a necessary step back, but was it in some ways an expected step back that this team took in order to move forward this season, aside from like the 6-10 record? But was there an expectation, not an expectation, but did this team take a step back in order to move forward, if you look at the big picture of things?
You know, it's hard. We definitely didn't set out with a goal to say let's only win 6 games. But back to the salary cap thing, we knew that we had to. You got to hit on some free agents, you know, undrafted guys, paying some guys lower level. There's only so many dollars to go around with that much dead money, and again, that's why I take a big onus in this record. Probably as much as anybody in the building, you can put the target on me for the calculated move of the cap. But that's fixed, and sorry about that. That's fixed, and you know, going forward, we'll be able to operate and not have to worry about, to Sal's point, worrying about releasing a guy just so you can get into free agency and make some moves.
Brandon, do you foresee any coaching changes on your staff in the next couple of weeks?
To be honest with you, you know, at the end of the day, Sean will make the final call on those. But we've just today been about meeting with players because a lot of them are looking to go to sunny palm trees and things like that. But we have not sat down to talk about that. We'll get to that this week, though.
And how did Josh's season play out compared to your expectations before it began?
You know, I was proud of Josh. At the end of the day, I didn't really draw up what I thought it would look like. I think somebody asked earlier, was it good to, you know, how many games he played? I honestly didn't know when we entered, you know, from the day we drafted him, even to training camp, how much he would play, if any. We tried not to force it. We tried just to let it come naturally, and obviously it came even earlier than we expected. But, you know, I was thrilled with what Josh did. At the same time, aware of the things that he's got to, you know, fix and continue to improve on. And that's the great thing about Josh. You can have candid conversations with him about what he's doing well and what he's got to get better. And I know Brian and his staff, I thought, did a really good job of continuing to utilize the things that he does well and to watch him grow. And you saw it with the play. He continued to get more comfortable as the year goes on. But he's got a lot of work to do, and we got a lot of work to do before we get back in 2019.
And the NFL teams reached out and inquired about kind of getting permission to interview some of your assistant coaches for head coaching openings?
To my knowledge, no. They send those via email, and I got a lot of emails, but I literally walked out of, I don't believe so, but I don't want to say no for sure.
Brandon, this may not necessarily be in your wheelhouse per se, but what you do this offseason, how much is it in sync or important to like Brett Rossi and Bruce Popko for selling sponsorships, season tickets, suites, premium seat sales?
I don't know if I get your question.
Well, how much what you do on the field plays into securing more sponsorship?
Yeah, I mean,
Sales, your ticket sales were down this year.
I got you. I didn't know if you meant sign certain players to market them or something. No, we're trying to win, and winning sells. Winning puts butts in the seats, sells more popcorn. I understand that business model well, and definitely that's what we're about. And so we're trying to definitely improve off of this record, 6-10. I hope Sean's up here next year at this time talking about a potential playoff game in that building right there. That's what I'd love.
What about the progression of Tremaine? Brandon, what did you see from him from the start of the year to the end of the year?
Similar to Josh, he's come a long way, and I think everybody forgets, especially if you're around him all the time because he's so big, that he's 20. And he's still growing into his body, believe it or not. But mentally, this was a big step. A lot was asked of him that was not asked at Virginia Tech. And for all that was thrown at him, I thought he really progressed. And I thought yesterday we saw a guy that just pulled the trigger faster than he had pulled it all year. There were some times he was still hesitant during the year. Some plays he really made. I remember the play that really was against New England, James White. They threw it in the flat. He runs out there, and that's a hard play for a guy who's 6'4 plus to break down in space and make that. And yesterday, I don't remember what his total tackles was, maybe around 11 or 12. But really happy with where he's at, and he has the growth mindset. He is a great kid, as you know, and he's not content with where he's at. He's one of those guys that you almost have to say, hey, you're still doing good. He's so hard on himself. He focuses on the 3 or 4 plays he missed versus the 15 or 20 that he nailed.
How much do you see a glimpse of the core of a foundation in this team now that you're closing this season and going to the next one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with what we've got, the production out of a lot of the first and second year players. We've got to continue, though. It starts with adding another draft class. Drafting is number one here. We're still going to, to the point earlier about being aggressive in free agency, judicious in free agency, and then building this thing through the draft. And I think if we continue to add another draft class here in 19, another one in 20, now you're rewarding your own in free agency. And these blocks, Trey White next year is going to be going in his 3rd year. I think we all can agree Zay Jones is trending up. These guys will continue to take, a higher leadership, stance as new guys come in. And so there are pieces here, but we got to continue to add. We're not, that's our job in the personnel department, to continue to find players that not only fit on the field, but fit what we do from a culture standpoint.
Hey, Brandon, given your experience through the years on rebuilding offensive lines, I'm not aware of how it was in Carolina, but this team looks like you may have 3 spots you have to fill, given the free agents you have and all that. Is it prudent, in your experience, that you do that in free agency because you want to get guys who can come right in and protect your quarterback? Or is it better to go to the draft and get a young kid that you can mold? What's the way to do that?
Well, I think you have to look at what is in free agency and not just go say, hey, I think it'd be careless to say, hey, I got to get one guard in free agency, a tackle, a center, whatever positions you're referring to, if they're not capable, if they're not upgrades. We're looking to bring competition in, and we'll definitely look in free agency, but if we get 2 guys that we think are worthy, we'll add 2. If it's 1, if it's 5, whatever it is, we'll do that, and then we'll see how the draft falls. But you can also add talent after the draft, and I know people don't think that, but there are times when you can. There will also be guys that I don't even know are coming out, that are going to be cap casualties on teams in February or early March.
Brandon, for you, what factors into the looming decision on Shaq Lawson as 5th-year option?
We'll go back and watch all of Shaq's stuff. I was super happy for him yesterday to get a couple sacks, and his professionalism went leaps and bounds this year. He really worked hard, and I saw a guy putting the effort in not only on the field but he brings juice and energy to our practice like I didn't see a year ago. And Bill Tierlink tells me he brings it to the meeting room as well. But I think we'll continue to watch him, how he handles the offseason and how he comes back in here. But I'm happy for him and his success. He worked hard this year, and he earned everything that happened for him yesterday.
How-
Take two more
how-
questions, please, two more.
How important was it to finally have Robert Foster step up the way he did, and how much did his development, his progression lead to you kind of parting ways with Kelvin at that point?
Yeah, I mean, Robert, I can't say enough good things about him. He's the one thing we just told him in the exit meeting is how proud I was, and how next year when we have the draft and the undrafted guys, we stand up there and we honestly tell guys that, listen, no matter whether you're a first-round pick or you're undrafted, we're all even now. You're going to get a chance. Even if you don't start first in the rung or second or wherever, I promise you, you are going to get a chance. And I think, you know, Robert will be a poster child. Levi Wallace, some of these other guys that were undrafted, and those two guys coming out of Alabama, that it does not matter. We truly care about who can help us win games. And to see what Robert did and the chip he had on his shoulder, was he pissed off? Heck yeah, he was pissed. I'd be worried if he wasn't. But he came in with the right attitude. He asked the right questions. He stayed here the bye week, continued to work and grow. And he's a super competitor. And the challenge now for him is to build off of what? You know, the thing we told him is guys are going to have film on you. They're going to be studying you now. So you're going to have to add something to your repertoire, or they're going to be ready for you come, you know, next August,
Hey, Brandon,
September.
What's it like knowing you're gonna have $90 million to spend and 10 draft picks? I mean, just, if you could summarize what that feeling's like, and that kind of capital to have.
I was going to divide it up in this room with you guys. You know, it's not about having it to spend it. It's about having it to be smart. In a perfect world, in my perfect world is we draft and we sign our own. We grow them and we sign them. So that's why it's important to be judicious and not just go spend it. It is to be selective, be smart, bring in some added competition to both sides of the ball and special teams. But it's nice to know that I've been on many teams where this time of the year, the GM and the head coach is having to answer questions about how you're going to get it, you know, into free agency with any money, because you're either over the cap or you barely got any money to operate. We don't have to worry about that going forward, which is freeing, so to speak.